Should we give a little bit more time to start, or? Okay, I guess I'll go ahead and start.
Great.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Happy Friday. My name is Keith Kim. I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the FPA of Georgia. And I'm also here with Sarah Howard, the Director of NextGen. Welcome to our joint event today. And we hope you and your family are well, and hope everyone's second half of the year is off to a good start. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Invesco and Schwab. We'll start by having Todd Page from Invesco talk briefly about Invesco. Go ahead, Todd.
Good morning, everyone. Greetings from sunny Orlando, Florida. Just want to share a few things about Invesco. One thing I want to make certain that you know is our world headquarters is in Atlanta, Georgia. With the Oppenheimer merger, we're roughly 1.6 trillion in assets under management, and we are the fourth largest ETF provider. And with that said, we have many value add and practice management presentations and capabilities that we can help with. One of them would be our capital markets assumptions, experts from Oppenheimer and Invesco. Secondly, Invesco Consulting. They've presented at many FPA and Schwab events nationally. We've got 26 different practice management areas to focus on, and I can forward a link to the FPA team to share with you all. And then finally, IVZ or Invesco Solutions. It's an in-house group that helps shock your portfolios, look at different market regimes. If you're familiar with Aladdin, it condenses it down to about 45 pages, and it helps you with your portfolios. And we would be happy to work with you in that. So with that said, thank you again. We look forward to working with you, and I'll hand it back to you, Keith.
Thank you, Todd.
I was born in 1937, so it was a very struggling period of time. That's the nature of Wall Street. Up and down, depression to exuberance, depression to exuberance. And you could name many, many cycles like that over the years. My generation, having come through so many wars and so many things, polio was really a big problem, a disease that didn't have a solution. But we persisted and finally came up with the Salk vaccine. Persistence, it's the heartbeat of this country. Stick with it.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Howard. I'm the Next Gen Director for FPA of Georgia. And we are super excited you guys are here today with us to meet Michelle Wong. She has a great presentation here today for us to speak a little bit about the roles within the financial planning industry. She has a diverse background, but is currently the founder of Nifty Advisor Solutions. And she's here to talk to us a little bit about her experience and the different roles in the industry. So with that, I will pass it off to Michelle.
Awesome, thanks so much. Give me a second, I'm gonna share my screen. Can you see that okay? So thank you for FPA of Georgia, to Keith, Sarah, Gina, and Monica for inviting me. I'm really excited just to share my experience as a non-advisor and also my experience working with Nifty. I'm just pulling up my notes. A little bit about myself. I joined the wealth management industry back in 2012, and I joined with the desire to be a financial advisor. I was recruited by AXA Advisors and then New York Life while studying financial economics at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And what exactly happened was that I decided to kind of start from the bottom up versus completely going cold into being a financial advisor. So what I did is I actually found a support role with a tax and wealth management practice. And then later I joined two of the larger RAs in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And what happened was this entire experience that I'm really excited to share with you today, and just my findings in the role itself. With my time, I made a commitment to volunteer with FPA a few years ago. I was on the FPA D&I committee from 2019 and 2020. I was on the 2020 FPA National Conference Task Force, where I also helped the task force plan the couple D&I events that we held. And right now I'm the FPA AAPI Knowledge Circle co-host with John. So for those 6 years, I was really committed to be a financial planner until I realized that I enjoyed working with businesses so much more. I felt like I was one of the lucky ones where I knew straight out of college what I wanted to do. I gravitated towards the wealth management industry and financial planning because I have this natural desire to serve others. I was also in a lot of nonprofit volunteer work, and I was always involved in networking. And I was always that oddball in the firm where I was always excited to go to like Schwab Solutions, where everyone else kind of just sighed while I was just hyped about it. So based on my experience kind of balancing these opportunities, I'm excited just to share my perspective based on the things I've seen advisors struggle with my years supporting advisors, what I did because I was so unfulfilled at my current job, and share with you that my perspective is geared towards RAs because that's the environment I grew up in. And also as the founder of Nifty Advisor Support, we also work with RAs, and there are small to medium-sized businesses as well. So really today's conversation is what's currently happening in the industry, what's the talent gap, and how to take advantage of that talent gap to explore a non-advisor role, and why this conversation is important for D&I from a workplace inclusion perspective. So as mentioned, I worked with two of the larger RAs in the area. Both of them had AUM around 2 billion. I worked in-house with advisors, but then I also worked as a part of a TAMP and provide outsourced support for RAs before I even started Nifty. When I was employed, really RA or starting an RA, especially solo advisors, that momentum was just picking up. But as you've seen over the past 10 years, RAs are continuing to grow as resources grow. And there's this constant cycle of growth within the RA industry. For example, as of November 11, 2020, RA growth continues to increase, with a lot of them, 87% of firms being small businesses with those small business challenges. As of September 9, 2019, RA employment also grew, increased by 3.7%, stating that over half of those employees provide investment advisory services, including research and other support roles as well. The talent gap that I've experienced, so with Nifty and in my previous roles, I've spoken a lot to my colleagues, a lot to interviewees, and these are common things that I hear during the interview process, but then also being a part of the operations space as a whole. So the talent gap, most common conversations, individuals in marketing, client servicing, paraplanning, or other career paths feel unheard or uninspired. There is a lack of career growth for non-advisor roles, where essentially sometimes they might leave the industry altogether. As you know, the industry is very reliant on certifications instead of real world experience, or at least the access to certifications is a lot greater versus the real world experience. But at the same time, there's this inability to get real world experience due to lack or minimal training available for, I believe, is a very niche space and it requires a very niche level of expertise. And what this says is we need to understand the challenges that advisors or non-advisors have so we don't duplicate them. So whether employed or self-employed, there's this commonality regardless of what type of non-advisor role you're in. So the two roles, whether you're an advisor or non-advisor, from what I've seen, kind of advocating for advisors, providing them that level of support and communication versus in the back end with team management. Those who aspire to be advisors are very consumer driven. They thrive from a very high level, big picture perspective. The role itself is more front office. I see them as the gasoline of the operation, and they usually only have one role, or at least they work up until they're only doing client-facing activities. For non-advisors, they thrive in a business-to-business environment, which personally I do myself. I only can handle so much consumer communication with clients. They're usually more detail and task-oriented versus advisors. They thrive more in the back office. They might be more introverted. And I consider them the engine of the operation, and they might wear multiple hats within the firm as well. So if the advisor is the gasoline of the operation, non-advisors are the engine of the operation, obviously you can't have a successful firm without either of those. But for non-advisor role, I would state that as someone who is directly working with an advisor, because I know there are a lot of different roles out there. So obviously every role is different, but this is just from a simplified perspective. So the opportunity for non-advisor roles, as RAs grow, parallel opportunities are going to shift as well. So as we see more advisors from broker-dealers breaking away to start their own RA, maybe it's a team, maybe it's by themselves. What we're kind of seeing is that the support people that supported that advisor at the BD, they either lose their role altogether or they want to explore working with an RA that's more established and has those opportunities available. Because if you're familiar with both the BD and RA environment, there's more flexibility, there's more ability to be creative in RA environment. And there's this kind of cultural shift as we've kind of experienced during COVID, that makes working with an RA more lucrative and more opportunities available. There is a lack of competition in this space that non-advisors are in or that support is in due to just lack of awareness of the opportunities available. It's kind of sad, kind of exciting at the same time when I speak to interviewees where they speak with me and they're like, oh, I didn't even know being a part of like an outsource provider or, you know, managing my own schedule, taking control of what I get to do on the day-to-day was even an option, or even showing the kind of exploring the multiple career paths for them if they feel like financial planning wasn't the right fit, or at least being a client-facing advisor. And with that, there's opportunities for career growth in multiple directions. So kind of the path that I decided to take, I really like understanding the little details before working up to a more client-facing position. But career growth opportunities for a non-advisor role, it can be a leader within a firm, a consultant, a team lead. You can stay as one-on-one support for advisors, but it's really figuring out how you define success in your own terms and not what the industry necessarily sets for you. The path of a client-facing financial planner is really what's is a great accomplishment, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're retaining industry professionals overall. And then lastly, it helps heighten your experience as an advisor or a non-advisor. So if you join, let's say you're having a career transition or you're just newly graduated, if you join as an advisor, you kind of miss all the operational aspects of what it takes to support clientele, which it doesn't allow you to speak to the entire client experience that your clients might have. If you start in a non-advisor role and start from the bottom to the way up, you can speak to every level of what's happening during your client experience process, whether that's client onboarding, annual reviews, prospecting. You're just able to speak more in terms of the day-to-day and what goes on behind the scenes. And at the same time, you find more value in the work that you're doing by understanding the nitty-gritty of what happens in the background. By deciding to choose whether you want to be an advisor or in a non-advisor role or working in that type of capacity, I'm very much into self-awareness. So before I even decided to start Nifty, I actually took myself through these notions because I wanted to make sure that my needs were being met that weren't being met by my current employer. And a lot of that is self-awareness, and it's a journey within itself. But here I listed questions that I feel like are very important to ask yourself, and whether you're picking the career path that's right for you. So questions here, how do I envision my day-to-day? Do you want to be more in the back end and just do the work, or do you really value that people interaction? How will my experiences shape myself moving forward? So if you hold on or think about all of those good and bad past experience that you've had, how is this experience moving forward going to be any different? And how are you going to take that information to make sure those experiences are duplicated or not duplicated ever again? What are my intrinsic and extrinsic motivators? The one question I always ask those who are studying financial planning or the CFP is, why are you doing it? If the first answer that comes out of their mouth is because the industry told me so, I usually ask them to explore other options or see what other might be available. But then with CFPs, if you're saying that you really want to serve the communities that that you want to serve, then I'm like, okay, maybe that's the right career path for you. But again, it's understanding what's really motivating you to get those designations, to apply for certain positions, that I really try to take everyone on my team and everyone that I speak to thoroughly, so I know they're making the right decision for themselves and they know exactly what they're going to get out of it. What are my mental limits? Mental health awareness is also very important to me. I deal with a lot of anxiety, but creating boundaries is really important and understanding where you thrive best. So for example, personally, I do not do well, or I'm not able to be my best with authority. I'm very much an entrepreneur, because what happens with authority is that it's also an Asian thing, but I kind of suppress my talents because you're trying to serve your employer or whoever is your higher figure. So that's something that I went through, but then also creating boundaries for myself to make sure that I'm in a healthy space to give my 100% every time I speak to a client, an advisor, or a team member, and going to those notions so you don't feel exhausted and you don't feel burdened by the path that you decide to take. Another exercise I did was I narrowed down my values. So what I did is I literally just took a sheet of paper, and it's sad I did this at my desk when I was employed, but I list 20 values of mine that make me extremely happy or where I wanted to see myself. And from those 20 values, narrow it down to half and then half after that. So you do 20 values or things that make you happiest, then you choose 10, and then you choose 5. Select a career that revolves around those 5 values, and that's the career that you should probably take, or the business or path that is probably right for you. So for me, I need flexibility. I'm the type of person where I think anywhere you commute is a waste of time. I hate driving, maybe that's it. But because of that, I knew that I would thrive in a remote environment because I can use every second to work, which is also horrible. But I also want the ability to live anywhere. I'm the type where I don't like being fixed to a location, or again, it's kind of that authority figure. I don't like people telling me that I have to stay in a desk. I have to be there between 9 and 5, which is a common comment for those who are in non-advisor roles. That I want to help others. And then I also wanted to be with my dogs at the time. So being home and also utilizing the space that I have. I'm very much into building an eco-friendly setup. So utilizing the equipment that I already have rather than spending more money on equipment that I didn't need, that I would only use half the time. And same with home. Being home and having the space. Those things are important to me, especially as I try to minimize the equipment that I had. Another thing is also defining whether you prefer to be a W-2 or a 1099. So W-2, it's pretty obvious you are an employee, therefore you have less control over your schedule. Usually you would become a W-2 if you have less experience or you need usually that financial stability. And then with 1099, you have more control. You're essentially a contractor. You can start your own business. Usually with contracting, you have more experience. Maybe you were in a W-2 role before, but you're also working with multiple clients and they would hire you for your expertise. So kind of defining the lines or defining which one would suit you better. I would say that as a business owner, I always ask interviewees, are you a W-2 because you want to be a W-2, or are you a W-2 because that's what was given to you as an interviewee or as a candidate? Same with 1099. So knowing those two are really important in terms of where you are in your career path. I think a full-time W-2 experience is invaluable to getting started, and you learn a lot of various things prior to going out on your own, and it builds confidence, right? Even before I joined the previous firm I was with, I knew I wanted to start a business, but I wanted to get that experience first before doing so. With the toolkit, these are the main things I feel as if are most beneficial, especially in the very beginning. My personality, I'm very much a go-getter. I volunteer for everything. I want to be involved in every little thing. But designations and certifications, FINRA has an entire list of professional designations that also list the CE requirements for each and what each of the designations mean. There's too many to list, so I would definitely check out the link. Reviewing your resume. So I've offered quite a few times to review resumes for those who are trying to enter into the industry. And the few things that I've noticed that are constant, they would forget to include a summary. So always include a summary of what your career goals are, because it helps paint a picture before even digging into the details. And then it also helps the employer envision how they could see you joining and also growing with the firm. When you're listing out your roles, don't just list out or write a job description. Also include accomplishments along with the role, because that's what shows, that you can do the job, but you can also do so much more than what your employer asks you. And they want to see that you're the one, or that you can take their business further. I always add volunteer and leadership roles to your resume, especially in a relationship-based industry. Those are the two things that will really set you apart, even if they're not financial planning related. With that, it just shows how service-oriented you are, what projects you did in addition to these roles. And I also think it's a risk-free way of networking and highlighting your contributions outside of the industry as well, or within the industry. Adding skills that complement the role. Adding skills that complement the role is really important, especially if you're currently in the BD space and trying to join the RA space, or vice versa. If you speak to any advisor, they would say that the two spaces are entirely different, and the jargon used between the RA space and the BD space are entirely different too. So if you're using BD jargon or language on your resume, it might not appeal to someone if you're trying to get employed by an RA, and vice versa. There's very specific language used in the RA space that's not necessarily used in the BD space, but becoming familiar with that is really important if you're trying to sell yourself on your resume, and you're really trying to make a change in terms of your work environment overall. Niche is very important, because as financial planners become more niche, or that's that's the common consensus, that you have to pick a niche. Paraplanning, I feel, is getting more competitive, and paraplanners will need to pick a niche, if not now, within the next couple of years, because that's really the only thing that's going to differentiate yourself if you're not providing any other services. So maybe a lot of California or advisors that are on the West Coast, they deal with a lot of clientele that are part of the tech space. So maybe you're a paraplanner for the tech space as well, and that's all you specialize in. But figuring that out is a really good exercise to do, especially if you're looking into paraplanning, whether as your sole employment or as a part of another RA, or even if it's on the side as well. Volunteering is irreplaceable. That's where I got a lot of my business experience and learning how to communicate with other people. Again, it's also risk-free, and it doesn't mean you have to be the president of FPA, right? There's so many opportunities with FPA in FPA itself, whether it's through a committee or a task force or a knowledge circle. Take opportunity you have, because that's how you're going to make the connections to grow later on. I would say my experience with FPA has been invaluable because I wouldn't have been able to work with the people that I've been able to work with. I wouldn't have met Keith. I wouldn't have met you guys. So if anything, really look into FPA, or even looking at even like offering pro bono services is a great way to stretch your skills as well. The last two, peer reviews are essential. I actually initiated this at my last job. So a peer review is when you ask a colleague of yours that I would say that you work with on the day-to-day, asking them 3 positive things that you do and 3 things that they think that you should work on. It takes a special it takes a special peer relationship to be very open with each other. But what you kind of learn is, because that person works with you on the day-to-day versus a higher up that might not actually see the quality of your work, the peer review is a really great way to get constructive criticism. And you'd be able to provide that same criticism back to your peer as well. It's one of the most invaluable. It's very, if you're more concerned about how you're carrying out the role on the day-to-day, I would definitely recommend that, and just initiate yourself. It doesn't have to be a formal program. And then mentors and allies. The difference between mentors and allies, I would say, is a mentor tells you what to do while allies tell others what you do. When I was employed, I still looked for mentors, even if they weren't exactly in the firm that I was with. The CFP board website has a mentorship program that you can look at. I found a couple mentors on there that I still speak with. And at the same time, finding allies is really important as well. You might already have allies right now that you're familiar with, or that you've been friends with for a very long time. And really defining between the two. Even if you don't have a mentor and you feel as if you don't have an ally, I would definitely start with finding a mentor first. But if you need any guidance on how to find a mentor, I'm more than happy to. These are the common mistakes I see a lot of non-advisors make in this space. I think it's natural because I'm still networking and trying to find those that are more entrepreneurial, because you'll find that a lot of those who are non-advisors, they might not enjoy networking as much. They might not feel as if they can be creative enough or competitive enough to go out on their own. But I think that's totally false as long as you put the work into it. But the common mistakes that I see is that they capitalize their strengths without understanding their weaknesses. I always believe in not working against yourself, but working with. So for example, if you have, let's say, social anxiety, or you only can handle so many Zoom meetings, really time blocking your schedule or working with yourself, maybe going to Toastmasters to make you more comfortable speaking with others. But what happens is they capitalize their strengths and they completely ignore their weaknesses, and they wonder why they're unhappy, or their higher up isn't supporting them as they would like, or maybe a client isn't working out. I think you do need to develop that self-awareness, and it takes some self-acceptance as well to really help you move forward. There's this unwillingness to be uncomfortable. I always say, if you're not learning, then something's wrong. Whether you might be getting too comfortable in the role and you need to find other resources to do something new. I think, again, that mentorship would really help. where they can provide some perspective in terms of what they did or what your allies have done that you might have not even considered, or even like a mastermind group would help you figure out what ideas you could do to better yourself if you feel like you have the time to do that. Lack of ability to adapt, that's within the industry, and this with advisors, or adapting to different technology or processes. It usually, depending on the age of a firm, the ability to adapt might change, but just being open-minded in terms of the technology that they adopt, the processes, best practices, and being aware of advisor needs is necessary in order to make yourself more valuable. Getting stuck in the business, not networking, not engaging, or learning, you're only taking the time to learn within the industry, and you're not taking ideas from outside the industry and bringing them in. That's probably the hardest thing to do, especially during COVID and all the virtual networking. But FPA, I'm sure FPA of Georgia has some really great opportunities to network and engage. But doing that to the point where you're not going to be, like, you still need to be uncomfortable networking. So if you feel like you're in the same circle all the time, reach out to somebody that you always wanted to speak to, or maybe it's somebody that you look up to. See if they respond. They might not respond, but at least you took the initiative to reach out to them. But it's that space of being comfortable that you need to be in order to grow personally. And the last I always say is celebrating your wins. I'm a nerd. I always say create a career portfolio if you're starting out in the industry. I literally took this little 1-inch binder to all my interviews, and I look like a huge overachiever. But what it will include is a table of contents, a resume. I kept all the cards that clients sent me. So like clients, the advisor clients that they would send me, and they're like, oh, like, thank you, Michelle, for doing this and that. Any type of volunteer work, or if you're into marketing, showing your designs in this career portfolio, it's just really something extra, and it shows that you're organized and you take the next step in order to get the role that you would like. And then with that career portfolio, with that job, I was actually offered 2 roles within the same firm. So I actually really encourage it. At the same time though, in addition to your career portfolio, whether it's before or after you get employed, create a hype journal. So creating a hype journal that makes you feel good anytime that you're depressed, or maybe you're just having an extreme off day. All the times that clients, whether they're clients or advisors, they say something good about you or they compliment you on a certain day, write it down or take a screenshot of it. Any cards, keep it in there. Any awards, your CFP certificate, keep it in that hype journal, or in your career portfolio. And it's just a great way to stay optimistic and not get so hung up on the negative aspect, because we all have our bad days. And it can feel as if you're taking 1 step forward and then 3 steps back. But with the hype journal, it just gives you something to celebrate. And you can even put some personal things in there, almost like a scrapbook of things that motivate you as well. I know you can have like a visual board. You can kind of think of it like that, even in your career portfolio. So what I'm going to go into for the last part of the presentation is just exactly why is this conversation important for D&I? What does this have to do about inclusion, especially the challenges that I saw as a W-2 and as a 1099 or a business owner. So the industry right now, where I feel, so this is from my perspective, so where we miss the mark, the industry misses the mark, and it's kind of interesting. So a lot of non-advisor roles are labeled as entry-level roles. With an entry-level role, right now, there's minimal growth and usually requires very niche experience currently in our industry. So that's interesting to me. There's a lack of industry recognition for non-advisor roles, even though more than half is basically all operations. There's lack of leadership from management, and therefore non-advisors feel stuck in a role that is unfulfilling and unrewarding. And it's kind of a cycle where advisors have difficulty finding candidates to fill these non-advisor roles. And then you look at all of the above. So these are common things I hear based on my colleagues and just team members, interviewees who have been in the industry for a while. And how advisors consistently have difficulty finding candidates to fill these non-advisor roles because of lack of talent or lack of applicants. Personally, I think that's why virtual assistants is thriving, or paraplanning, that outsourced support, because advisors are already having trouble filling those roles within their firm already. And one thing is true, you can't have diversity without inclusion, right? So when I think, workplace inclusion, I just pulled this from, I thought this explanation was great. Inclusion is the culture in which the mix of people can come to work, feel comfortable and confident to be themselves, work in a way that suits them and delivers your business needs. Inclusion will ensure that everyone feels valued and, importantly, adds value. The way that I think of it is, whether you're a planner, a paraplanner, well, a financial planner, a marketing associate, a paraplanner, a CSA, accountant, whoever it is within your firm, I always think of everyone as a piece to a larger puzzle. So regardless of the role that you play, every piece is shaped differently, but they all take up the same amount of space. And I really think in order to achieve that larger goal, which is the whole entire puzzle in itself, there needs to be this attention that's paid to each role, versus this hierarchy of roles that is very traditional, with not just within the industry, but in a career itself. So this is really specific for business leaders. So really what I'm saying is that is figuring out how to find the most appreciation towards non-advisor roles and make them feel included as a business leader. So if you're a business leader, understanding that different individuals gravitate towards different careers. As a business leader in the financial planning space, I think that you're not just selling the financial plan, but you're selling the entire client experience and whoever plays a part of that. So that means that each person's well-being, ideas, and contributions deserve to be heard, and providing a space for people with different individual or different personalities, different lifestyles, and finding the career path that's right for them and not necessarily just what the employer desires is really what I hope the industry evolves to, as we kind of see this talent gap happening between advisors and giving the correct support to non-advisor roles. And never over-promising and under-delivering as a business leader, or just as a person overall, which is hard when we're just pulled in so many directions, right? But then also creating a transparent and engaging team culture, whether you're remote or in office. But then if you're not entirely sure how to do that, bring those who are a part of your firm in and ask them how you can do better, and be open and listen and understand so you can adapt to your team. But the biggest thing that I didn't add here that I feel like is very true is learning how to be a vulnerable leader. So making sure to ask for help when you need it, be transparent, because I think you can't ask from others without doing the same in return. So if you want your team to be vulnerable and authentic and transparent, you have to be the exact same way to them. Otherwise, there's going to be this barrier between management and other advisors or non-advisors on your team. So I wanted to choose a quote for the very end, and the quote that I chose was, "Wisdom is knowing the right path to take, and integrity is taking it." So I came up with 2 action items, one for business leaders and ones that are new to the industry and are seeking a change. For business leaders, say thank you to the non-advisors you know and appreciate in your life. A small thank you, or even if you want to write an appreciation paragraph, take the time to say thank you to them sometime today. It takes only a few seconds and it would mean the world to them. For those new to the industry or who are looking for a change, I would say the most, I guess, concrete step is really to figure out who your current mentors and allies are. And if you don't have either of those, find a mentor on the CFP site, FPA Activate within your chapter, or LinkedIn. Those are really good resources to look for because they'll help you build a network. They know what they're doing, their experience, they have resources that I'm sure they'd be willing to share with you. But when you find a mentor, find someone that you look up to and aspire to. I always think that a mentor and mentee relationship goes both ways. So finding someone that you really trust to kind of harness your career and really take it to the next step is really something that you should pursue. Always thank you for attending. I hope everyone found it valuable. I guess I'll leave it to Keith and Sarah for asking questions.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, definitely, we have. Yeah, thank you, Michelle. By the way, there's so much thoughts went into this presentation, and to how you kind of ended this presentation. Like when you went through the different like characters of advisor and non-advisor, I was thinking, okay, I really get to appreciate our non-advisor staff because as a financial advisor, you get to kind of do it yourself in the beginning, and you kind of grew to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very refreshing to see the clear distinction.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you have one question coming from Louis. Okay, so for someone who is a career changer, interested in this path, how would you suggest getting started? Should certifications be the place to start?
I would say certifications are the place. When I was employed, they made me take the FPQP. Like it wasn't a choice. So if you're not looking to go, the whole 100 yards, I would definitely look into the FPQP, which is it used to be registered paraplanner, but it's the financial paraplanner qualified professional designation. It's not as much of a commitment, but it shows that you understand the basics of financial planning. And even though I was in operations, they still wanted us to take it. So I would look into that if that's as your budget allows.
Thank you. And we have one question coming also. Can you explain the difference between the role of a virtual assistant versus a paraplanner?
So I think the common misconception with virtual assistants is that it's a one size fits all. So virtual assistants is a whole industry within itself, and it's what you make out of it. So you're able to kind of pull from your different skill sets and make your own offering. Like any role that's remote and can serve others is essentially a virtual assistant. So that could be A social media manager, it could be a virtual accountant or virtual bookkeeper. It could be a virtual paraplanner. It could be like a virtual like CSA or a virtual admin. All of those are considered virtual assistants, where paraplanning, it's very it's very skill specific. That's really the difference between the two, at least what I see. So I consider a paraplanner to a financial planner similar to a paralegal to attorney is how I view it.
And I have a question, Michelle.
Okay.
Speaking to paraplanner, you mentioned about paraplanners having to find their own niche. In the you providing virtual support to advisors, and you provide paraplanner support. Is that the path that you see as an opportunity in the future for your own firm and the growth and the trend of the industry as a whole?
I could see different paraplanners on my team specializing in different areas of financial planning. Paraplanning is still it's a solo venture right now. If you kind of look at UK or Australia and look at their paraplanning industries, it's very much expanded, it's developed, it's more senior, just more complex, versus the industry is still kind of budding here. So if you're taking on as a solo venture, it's kind of the same practice as a financial planner would go through. Or at least I think that the way that you find your niche is like what communities are you already engaged in and that you enjoy being around, and kind of tailoring that, seeing what financial planning opportunities or recommendations that would revolve around that target market, and then use that to serve advisors and find an advisor that resonates with that same message or community that you want to serve.
I have a question for you, Michelle. So the people you work with or your employees, where are most of these people coming from? Are they coming from big brokerage firms? Are they coming from smaller planning firms? Are they right out of college, new to the industry? What do you see the backgrounds?
I love it because it's a diverse set of people. So we have newly graduates where they thought that financial planning was like, just typical financial advisor career path was the only path for them, but they really enjoyed the business side. We have one of my team members who's a part of FPA Georgia. He just wants to be involved in the industry. It's something he's really passionate about. He's not full-time. There are also, parents that just need the flexibility of working from home, or even, those who are newly graduated want to be moms. They want the flexibility of working from home. But where they're coming from, for me, at least, I look at Simply Paraplanner as a great resource. Alex and Jen are great there. The CFP website, those are probably the two that I feel like are most recognized, or I feel like I get the most valuable candidates from. But they're all over the US as well. So
it's 100% remote.
Yeah, just home all the time. It's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I hope that answered your question, Sarah. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And I don't see any other questions. Any other questions from you, Keith, or any?
No.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate your time today, and thank you everyone for attending. And everyone have a great weekend.
All right, you too. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.